Great Scott! This week on the Documentary Review Podcast, Jonathan and I go where we don't need roads as we discuss the 2015 documentary Back in Time. Welcome to episode 45 of the Documentary Review Podcast. I'm PT.
I'm Jonathan. Glad you can join us, as always.
Indeed, indeed. We're here to go back in time. But
Yeah.
before we do, how's it going, Jonathan?
It's going good. It's going good. I don't think I need a time machine to redo anything this week, so
Nice,
that's good.
nice. If someone handed you a time machine, you just smash it and you'd be like, I don't need it. I don't want it.
Like, yeah, whatever. I'm good.
I'm not even think about the benefits to humanity or anything. I'm
No,
smashing it.
no.
Done.
We did have a big blizzard today. That was kind of fun.
Nice.
It's got a snow day. It's only November. The kids were, off school, had it closed today, so that was fun for them.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
First snow day of the year, eh?
First snow day of the year.
Sweet.
I assume the weather's a little warmer in Tennessee right now.
Yeah, it's definitely it was in the 60s today, 65 or something. It's kind of related to this movie, but I saw somebody posted a funny tweet the other day that was like, I don't remember who it was, but it was like, imagine you're in Austria in the year 1915 and a man pops out of nowhere and like grabs a baby out of someone's arms and is about to kill them. Would you try to stop them? Congratulations, you just killed the person who was trying to kill baby Hitler. Nice.
Nice.
Yes. Good time travel. I'm excited about talking about this movie because we can just talk about time travel for this whole episode.
That's true. I think how was your week before we dive into it? Anything interesting, insightful, other than the
it was good. My daughter had her she's into acting and she was played the lead role in a play yesterday, so the first leading role, so that was cool.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And for some reason she got really mad at me when after the play I said she was really hungry and I was like, well, I don't want you to eat before the play because I thought you might like throw up on stage or something. She got like, I don't know why, but she got really mad at me about that. But anyway, she did a good job though.
Good.
Very good.
Yeah, I wouldn't try and read too much into that. My daughter gets really mad at me from time to time, and I'm just like baffled. So
right, yeah, she has a super long monologue and some other stuff. It was good times. All right, but enough traveling into the past. Let's travel in the future. Tell us about this documentary, Jonathan.
All right, Back in Time is essentially a fanboy look at Back to the Future and what it's done to and for pop culture and any other element that it's kind of seeped its way into over the last 30 years since the film was originally created. Definitely dives into some interviews with the creators, Bob Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg, Michael J. Fox are in there, all the major players, giving some, little recounts of, the filming and creative process, along with a whole host of people that take a summer blockbuster movie way too seriously.
They're fans, big fans.
Big fans.
Did you enjoy this film?
I did not. This was
I thought you'd go that route. You tend to not like the lighter fare. You know what I mean? You like there to be more substance.
Yeah. Like I think I would have liked this more if it was like a 30 for 30 kind of thing, like a 30-minute long or shorter little blip on, hey, Back to the Future turned 30. Here's like a couple anecdotes from the film's creators, and yeah, there's a bunch of people that like. I could have got behind it more if it was like like Back to the Future it's a fun movie. I liked it. I still like it. It was a summer blockbuster movie. It didn't change film. It didn't change cinematography. It didn't change the way future blockbusters were made. Really, there wasn't. It didn't have much of an impact at all on the world of film or society, or other than maybe it did inspire an actual hoverboard, which would be awesome if they could do that. But other than that,
right. and it did. There's a couple competing companies now with hoverboards. Yeah, I'm gonna go kind of the other way on it, which is well. First of all, I mean, I'm kind of borderline on it, but I'd say I enjoyed it. But I feel like this documentary, you said it would have been better if it was 30 minutes. I almost feel like they did the classic fatal flaw of many documentaries, which is take a topic and let's just shove everything we possibly could say about this topic into the documentary. I feel like we could have blown this out into like 2 or 3 documentaries or whatever if it would have been like more focused on certain aspects. Like there's I feel like they could have gone a lot deeper into behind the scenes stuff, and that could have been interesting if that was like the whole movie and they really made a story out of that. And could have been cool, or it could have been really cool if they delved really deeply into like 3 or 4 of the fans' lives and told some stories about them. So I think the flaw of this documentary, in my opinion, is that like there's lots of anecdotes, like lots of interesting little anecdotes going on throughout, but there was no like overall story of the documentary, which I think there could have been, and I think would have made it much stronger. So I wish they would have focused in a little bit on something specific and told like a beginning to end story rather than just be like, here's a bunch of interesting stories and facts about Back to the Future.
Yeah, and even with that, they didn't even find like the most interesting stories or facts, and even the things that were like kind of intrigued me a little bit was I wasn't aware that they went so far into production with another lead actor before switching over to Michael J. Fox. And like, yeah, like you said, like that could have been an interesting story, because I don't think they ever did they interview him, the other
No,
actor.
I'm sure Eric Stoltz is like sick of sick of talking about that, and he's
right, like, oh yeah, I had that great role that could like launch my career, and
right,
they stole it from me. Yeah, probably it's a tough interview to get.
right. He's are you familiar with him? He's the guy who's it's like the heroin dealer in Pulp Fiction, that guy with the red hair. And
oh, that guy?
Yeah, he's been in a bunch of stuff. Yep. Cool. He was almost a big star for.
Yeah, but I'm glad fate brought him to that role in Pulp Fiction. It's a great scene.
Right, and he's had a big career. He's been a worky actor, and he was on the hit TV show Bad About You. That's pretty good. Yeah. So let's try to figure out how to dive into this. But I do think you're underestimating the impact of Back to the Future a little bit, because I think it was pretty impactful from a perspective. I think maybe more from like a screenwriting perspective or whatever. I think it kind of did affect a lot of things, and it did. There were a lot of attempted copycats of it and stuff like that. And I do think it's a really good point that they kept making throughout, which is that I do think it's almost a perfect screenplay. Although here's my nitpick with it, so you follow me down this rabbit hole of Back to the Future. Let's dive into the logic of time travel and Back to the Future here a little bit.
All right.
So, because I do think their time travel, like, it's obviously really hard to have a time travel movie without lots of plot holes, and I think they do a pretty good job with it. But but here's where it kind of falls apart for me. And I think it's explainable, but I'm just curious about your take. So for the most part, Back to the Future. Okay, so the whole time travel theory of Back to the Future is you basically you go back in time and then you change one thing, and then there's like a new timeline that branches off based on what you did, and all that. So that solves a lot of their time travel problems, and I think and is okay. But where they get into trouble is every time they try to do something cute and funny, like for instance, the famous scene when Michael J. Fox is playing Johnny B. Good on the guitar, and then the guy in the band like calls up Chuck Berry and holds up the phone and is like, "Oh my God, you got to hear this great new sound." So, like, I get it that that's just like supposed to be a fun little thing, but what's the logic behind that? Are we to assume? It's like obviously Johnny B. Good already existed. He knew the song, so he didn't like.
Right, but yeah, that's where you get into your like classic time loop stuff.
Right.
Or that song would never have been invented unless Michael J. Fox went back in time, or Marty McFly went back in time and played it so Chuck Berry could hear it and then write it, and then he's got to keep that loop going and going. So that
right. But I don't even think that's the way it works in this. I think we have to assume that the John B. Good was written by Chuck Berry, and then but But Marty McFly went back in time and played the song for him slightly before he would have written the song. So
Right.
just ever so slightly nudging the time frame. So like when he goes back to the present, we see how it's affected his family, but how has it affected the state of music? That's what I want to know. Maybe
Right.
maybe music is completely different.
Totally. There's so many things that could be completely different. Plus, there's a couple of those like Chuck Berry kind of things that they throw in there, like Mayor Goldie Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
because he was mayor, but then like when he sees him in the diner and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna be mayor someday," or whatever. He's like, "Yeah, mayor." Like, "Oh my gosh, this is like a huge idea," and that's probably what that spawned his whole, you know,
Right.
thought process. So like again, that's the exact same thing as the Chuck Berry thing.
Right. So we already know he's mayor without Marty McFly going back. So we have to
Or
assume
do
that
we?
Yeah, I think of the time travel logic of the movie. That's
Yeah, I
that's the
suppose
way it
so.
has to work. Because it's not like it doesn't work in these movies like that. He always went back in time because he's changed. When Doc
Right.
Brown explains it, it's all like stuff branching off and things like that. But so I think that he probably also upset the state of politics in the United States by giving Goldie Wilson the idea to run for mayor much sooner than he would have had it. So I don't know. Maybe it's President Goldie Wilson right now in
In the Back to the Future timeline.
Back to the Future universe.
Right? Could be.
Yeah. So I don't know. Um, Boy, a lot of good stuff going on there.
Yeah, that's right. Because again, like, but then you always run into all the time like time travel. Because I mean, like, obviously, he did like tons of stuff, interacted with a ton of people, and changed like tons of timelines, which would have like a huge ripple effect. But then you got a time machine, so he could have just gone back to, you know, just before he went back in time and screwed everything up by, making sure his father didn't get hit by the car, and been like, "Don't go back in time," or I guess he
Right.
kind of tries to do that because he tries to go back just slightly sooner to, you
Right.
know.
Well, I mean, the way that, and really, if you think about the way that Doc Brown explains it, it makes the whole movie like basically just completely selfish from Marty's point of view because, like, the way Doc Brown explains it is each time you make a change, you're not changing the future, you're just making a new alternate future or whatever. So basically, Marty's already screwed up everything. Like he's already made it so his parents don't. All he's trying to do is fix it so that like his timeline things work out perfectly on his timeline. He doesn't care about all these alternate other timelines. He's screwed everyone up.
Right. And plus, like, I mean, then like if you want to get into like the time travel, like anytime he made any change or whatever, it would instantly be his new memories. You know what I mean? Because like he would have lived that timeline until he got to go back in the past, and so he wouldn't even be aware that he was making things different because that would have just
I don't
been.
know. I think he's maybe going to a new alternate timeline. So he's now in a different timeline than the one he lived in, I think.
Right. But I think there's only one timeline. You know what I mean? Like you
No,
can change.
that's what Doc's saying is like there's a million branching different timelines that you can go to. It's like every time you make a change, it makes a new timeline, basically.
Right, but I mean, so then there's like a million overlapping dimensions. But then when we went back to, so it would have to be a time dimensional machine because you have to make sure you still ended up in the dimension you wanted to end up in because now there's like a million different dimensions and
Well, no,
timelines.
because you're staying on the path, like so you make your change. You're gonna follow that timeline still when you go into the future or whatever. It's because you're not in like a machine that hops you to a new dimension. You know what I mean?
Right, but then by that rationale, he would like because that timeline is still the one that he exists in.
No, not anymore, because he's gone back in time, started a new timeline, started down
Right.
this new path, and then he goes forward in that timeline.
I
Because
suppose.
he's
I
already
guess
in
I
that new
see where.
timeline. He can't
Right.
go back to his original timeline. He's out of that one.
That one's gone. Just
Right.
disappeared.
Yeah, Doc does explain all that pretty well, I think, in one or two. I don't remember. I don't know if you've seen that recently, but
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen any of them.
yeah.
Did
So
make me want to
anyway,
go back and watch it.
yeah. Yeah, so there we go. I really like Dan Harmon in this movie, who's the guy who talks about how he has the whole point about basically anytime we go to the movies, it's like basically like going to the casino. It's like your odds are you're basically throwing your money away, but it's worth it because every once in a while you see some great movie like Back to the Future.
I suppose. I mean, like, I think there's definitely that element is for sure. In any time you go to the movies. But I mean, like, most of the time you got a pretty good idea, I think, before you go, whether you'll at least enjoy the film a little bit. And I think like the other big like I would say that most people, if you're going to the theater to see a movie, more often than not, it's at least a decent experience. Like if you hate romantic comedies, you're not going to go see a romantic comedy. Or if you do, it's going to be because everyone was like, "That is the best romantic comedy ever. You would actually like this one." So, but
Right.
I do like that idea that yeah, it's a roll of the dice when you go see a movie.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense in the sense that yeah, I mean, there's not that many really good movies. Like there's plenty of movies that you're like, oh, that was a
Right.
decent time way to pass the time or whatever. But it's pretty rare that you see a movie that you're like, holy cow, that's a really good movie. What was the last really good movie you think that you saw?
Oh, I got it. The Night Before.
The night
Just watched
before?
that yesterday with it's the new Seth Rogen movie.
All right,
Seth Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Uh, but yeah, it was awesome. I mean, like
nice.
like it's
What's the
certain.
deal with that movie? What's it about?
It's so when he's just graduating high school, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's parents die in a car accident, both of them just prior to Christmas. And his two best friends, Seth Rogen and the guy that plays Falcon in uh, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't know that actor's name, but they're his two best friends, and they take him out to like cheer him up or whatever, and that becomes a tradition every single year. The night before Christmas, they go out and just go get basically messed up and hammered and have basically a big party kind of a thing. And the three of them spend that day together every year for the last 15 years, I think. And this is their last one because like Seth Rogen is like has a family now. He's about to have his first child, and the other guy has like become a famous football player, and he just like they just can't do it anymore or whatever. But so it's one, the movie is hilarious, so that's really what made it good. And then like it has some nice little touching parts, but I like it was I saw the advanced screening of it with a press release thing yesterday, and I would say like 80 times during the movie, the entire audience was like laughing out loud hysterically.
Nice.
So yeah.
It's
So there
pretty
you
good
go.
when you get a theater full of critics too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the way those advanced screenings work is like a third of the theater is filled with critics, and then everyone else is like has won tickets through radio contests or things
Gotcha.
like that to fill the because otherwise it's just a bunch of critics sitting
Gotcha.
snidely.
Nice. But would you say that's a great film? Is that like one of
No,
the
oh
films that
no,
you're going to
no,
be like
no,
that? Oh
no,
man, this is one that I'm going to remember and
no, no.
watch
I
through
mean,
the years.
it was one that I really liked. Like if I would have paid money to see it, I would have been like, oh yeah, it was worth every penny. But no, was it like a great you know cinematic gem that no.
Right.
Um, yeah, I don't know. But how about you? What was the last great movie? Because
Um.
I wouldn't put Back to the Future in that category of great
Oh, really?
movies.
Huh.
No, I mean like I really like it. I think the movie is certainly a good movie. It's got a great soundtrack. It's really fun. Like I would put it in the category of like Independence Day. I mean, like
Oh,
something
wow.
that's really fun to watch. Like I really, but it's not like it's not a great movie. I mean, like
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe I look at it more from like a writing perspective or something. But like when you watch that movie, it's like just insane how like every line, every tick, every beat is like there for like a purpose. Every character has like a crazy arc. Like every little tiny thing that they put in there pays off in a really good way. Like it's all like structurally, it's just such a tight movie. You're like, oh my god,
I
that's
definitely see that. I definitely see that it's structural, and I see that there's like a formula to it, obviously, because then they try and like redo that formula for two and three. And I don't mean to rip on it, but I mean like the elements to me that make like an amazing film. I mean, it was funny and entertaining, uh, but like it was very bubblegummy. You know what I mean? It's a which it should be. I mean, if you're shooting for a summer blockbuster, you make you know Avengers: Age of Ultron. I mean, like it was cool, it was full of action, but like the substance is really weak, and they put it in there to play to a huge audience. And that's kind of what Back to the Future was. You know, nobody like left that theater and was like, "Wow, I feel like, you know, that movie was profound and changed my life." They were
Yeah,
like, "That was a
I don't
super
think it
badass."
has to be though. I don't think a good movie has to be profound. Like everything doesn't have to be serious. But
No, I don't.
I think
I
that
don't.
like that thing that I'm talking about though, that insanely tight plot is so hard to do. Like it's so rare in movies. You almost never see a plot like that. That's that tight. I can't think of the last movie I saw that had that. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like maybe from just like a technical standpoint, I could see being right. Not, you know, yeah, I don't know.
And
It just,
like that moment that they pointed out in the documentary, like the moment when George McFly punches Biff. Oh my God, that's like they built that up so perfectly throughout the whole movie, and that like this was just such a huge emotional payoff. And like, was it like a profound moment? No, but oh my God, it's the human experience. You know what I mean? Like you can't help but cheer at that.
yeah. I mean, like agreed. Like, yeah, it was cool, but I mean, I think that gets replicated fairly frequently in movies. I mean, like, I just saw Inside Out, and like, you know, there's a scene where, you know, the spoiler alert if anybody hasn't seen Inside Out and wants to, but there's a scene at the end where, you know, she's like gets together with her family, and like she's uh, the internal, like the character parts of it. So like that movie has like, you know, the external, like an actual real people, and then like the main characters are the little voices in her head representing, you know, physical embodiments of the emotions like realize like sadness has its place, and even though this kid is happy a kid, that you can't have joy all the time, and it needs to be a more complex system. And then they kind of come to that like revelation at the end of the film, and the external factor of that is her breaking down in a moment, a bittersweet moment with her family, where she's crying and at the same time being comforted by her parents who are sad, and it creates also this great moment of bonding between the family. And that's, you know, and that, I mean, the whole movie really built to that
Right.
instance. So
Yeah.
I
No.
mean,
Yeah, I agree. I think Inside Out's a great movie.
yeah, yeah, it's a great movie. And that scene I think is obviously like a different feel to it, like you know, like obviously, you know, becoming the hero at that moment, and then like realizing this complexity are two different things, but the feel of the scene was exactly the same. It had a huge build up right to that moment and played out very well. And I think that happens. Obviously, that's doesn't happen in every movie because a lot of movies kind of suck. But
Right. I think it's really rare, really hard to do that. That I think that's why total side tangent, but I mean I think Pixar is really super awesomely good at that.
yeah, they
And
are.
that's like like what they made their name on. Um,
Oh yeah, that's. Oh, sorry, I gotta go off on this tangent. Have
do
you
it.
seen the behind the scenes thing of uh, how they wrote and made? It's like on the Blu-ray or whatever of Inside Out.
No.
Totally watch it because you would really like it. Like, it, I found it shocking how committed Pixar is to finding the right idea in the right format. And they're literally willing, like, the reason they end up with the right thing is because they throw out everything once they realize it's not the right thing. And I think almost every other movie, if you figure out, like, oh, this isn't quite right, you're like, well, crap, we got to get a movie cranked out this year. So we're going to push through and we're going to stick to the original script. You know, I bet you it's rare that you throw out the original script 8 times before you know, I mean, unless you're like the author sitting in his, you know, bedroom typing it out. Once you
Right.
get to the point where it's in a studio, you're not like, oh, I got this script, but oh wait, you know what, screw it, it's not working, start from scratch. And that's totally what they did for that movie. And it took a couple years, and they would like write the whole movie, and they'd be like, it kind of sucks, and boom, throw it out, until
Right.
they finally were like, oh, here's the element we're missing, and then they really built it, you know. But I think that's why they're so successful all the time. They're so willing to just like let everything go and be like, well, that was kind of okay, but it wasn't. We were missing an element, and then once they figure out what that element is, then they, you know, start from scratch.
Yeah, they that's yeah, we're way off topic, but I don't care. I like it.
Way off, yeah, way off. Sorry.
Who cares? It's podcast. That's what podcasts are all about. But yeah, I think that's that whole process is um, like they had John Lasseter, the guy who was over Pixar,
Mhm.
came and took over Disney Animation because they were like, man, you know how all your movies are awesome and all our movies suck. Come help us. And then he like took over their stuff, and then like yeah, their next two movies were like Tangled and Frozen because they put in his processes, and we're pretty good.
Yeah, I think John Lasseter's process would have made, again, something we got to agree to disagree on, Inception a great movie, because like the bones of it were there, the idea and the concept were there, and those things were great, but then like the execution fell apart for me. And I think somebody like John Lasseter could have came in there and been like, okay, we're gonna keep those bones because they're fantastic, but everything else has to go. We got to start from scratch. We got to redo this, and you would have ended up with something far superior.
Right. Yeah, I won't disagree with that. It's quite possible.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the fans of this movie, because the other half of this movie, I mean, we basically just talked about Back to the Future so far, but
Sure.
but there were a lot of interesting stories behind the scenes that we won't get into. But the other half of the movie is basically just, hey, here's a bunch of fans. So I'm curious, is there anything in your life that you feel like these guys feel about Back to the Future? I mean, like, not like obviously your family and stuff like that, but is there anything else that you're just like really into, that you feel you could like kind of understand? Boy, if you understand that this is kind of my Back to the Future or whatever.
No, definitely not. I mean, I kind of wish I had something like that. I mean, there are definitely like many things I enjoy. Like I have many hobbies, and some I dedicate myself to, but none of them. Like I'm more of a taste all life has to offer kind of guy, I guess. Like I just don't commit to other than my family, anything like that.
Right.
I just, yeah, maybe business. I mean, I don't know. I feel pretty passionate about that. Um, but yeah, other than that, no, I had no desire to.
Right. I like the way that the fans they picked were like almost all fans who were like either making money off their fandom or were like doing it like as a huge like volunteer. Like those one people who were just like driving around the country in their DeLorean for Michael J. Fox's charity. I think they did a good job in their selection of their fans. You know what I mean?
Sure, like that, like the example you gave was the best one because they were really cool because it ended up being supposed to be a bucket list item to convert a DeLorean to a time machine, but whatever. I mean, like I can kind of see where like that would be a cool weekend project or whatever. I mean, DeLoreans are cool in and of themselves, and then I would feel actually bad, because there's so few DeLoreans left to like, essentially rip one apart and make it look like a time machine. But
Right.
whatever, if that's what you want to do, more power to you. Oddly enough, like the other like other than the fans and then like the people that created the film, the other little like group of people that was in this documentary was the one group I felt bad for, and that was the people that worked on the original movie but then never had anything else happen, so they've been riding that wave for 30 years.
Right.
I mean,
like yeah, the good example is like Mayor Goldie, who was like when he first showed up, he was like, "Oh yeah, man, I'm so sick of like people being asking me to do my line about mayor or whatever." But you could tell he really he liked
yeah,
that.
he that was what he lived for.
Yeah, he was definitely into Back to the Future, which hey, good. That's cool. I mean, I think it's cool that there is so much stuff like that. Like, there's surely plenty of people in my own corner of fandom, which is stuff like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's plenty of people who are on like 2 episodes of Buffy that are like, going around, spend their summers going around to conventions and signing autographs and stuff like that. Which hey, that's cool, I guess. I mean,
yeah, and I mean, like, there's part of me where I'm like, I get it if you're like, oh crap, I was an actor, I was on, a couple episodes of a show, or I was in Back to the Future for 10 minutes, and I really don't have anything else going on in the entertainment front, but I can pay rent doing it.
right.
Yeah, more power to you. But it seemed like it was more than that. Like it almost reminded me of like, when you were at, like, if you've ever been in a party and some dude's like, yeah, we won the state high school championship and I was football, quarterback or whatever. And you're like, right, but we're like 40 now. So that was a really long time ago and it really doesn't mean anything now.
Yeah, I think the difference though is like, imagine if there's that guy and there was like just a group of like 5,000 people who were
Followers.
super into that, that year of football. And we're like, oh my God, yeah, we have conventions that are about that year of football. Like, if you could come to that convention and like talk for a minute, that would be amazing. And then when you went to that, like in your normal life, you're just, regular dude walking down the street. But when you go to that convention, holy cow, every person there is like, oh my God, it's
Right.
it's the quarterback from that 1 year football team. This is amazing. They're a huge celebrity.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
I
suppose.
could
I
see getting
suppose
sucked
that's
into that.
I could see getting sucked into it a little bit, I guess. I don't know. I think me personally, I'd be like, yeah, I still show up to the conventions. They pay me really well, so I'm gonna keep doing it. But I wouldn't be like, yeah, because I was Mary Coley Wilson,
Right.
But anyway, just my little nitpick right there. Whenever those guys came on and started talking, I'd be like, oh.
Nice. All right. Well, anything else to say about this? We didn't talk too much about the
I was gonna
documentary,
say we didn't, but there wasn't much to say about it. I don't think I was a little.
so, like, I mean, it was just about Back to the Future. Back to the
Yeah,
Future, here.
yeah. It would have
Some
been
behind the
like,
scenes stories. There were some interesting behind the scenes stories, I thought, but
what was your
not me
what
to
do you
rehash.
think the most interesting one was? Pick one.
Um, I think the most interesting to me, like, I'm always interested in like the stories of how stuff like almost didn't get made or whatever. So like the whole story about how the guy was the head of one studio, and then he kind of like, I don't know if he quit or got canned and went and was the head of another studio, and he really wanted to make Back to the Future, so he ended up like trading the rights to this other movie. And the story's much more interesting than I just made it sound. let me
Yeah.
let me tell you that. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, and also I thought it was interesting just the whole replacing the actor thing, and the whole thing about how Michael J. Fox was shooting Family Ties during the day and was shooting Back to the Future at night.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there
Cool.
you go. All right, let's put Back to the Future, put it in this time machine, and send it off down the road. How many stars are you gonna give Back to the Future? Back in Time, I should say, not Back to the Future. So.
Yeah, totally different. Back in Time, I'm going to give. I'm gonna go 2 stars.
Mm.
And that's rounding up.
Okay, I'll go. I guess I'll go like 3 stars. I guess it was an enjoyable time. I'm glad I watched it.
All right, rack on.
There you go. That is Back in Time. Check it out. I mean, I feel like it's the kind of documentary that could be like a DVD extra on Back to the Future, basically. But
Yeah, that would be perfect. That would be perfect for
it's,
it. So yeah, if at any point you decide to watch Back in Time, or then and you're like, this part's not that interesting, just go ahead and fast forward as long as you want, and then just hit play again. You're not gonna miss anything.
I do want to give the director props because I looked him up on Internet Movie Database, and man, he's got some sweet glasses. His glasses are like fine grain, like they're really, really like wide lenses, and they're made of like I don't know, oak or something. They're like very, very like grained wood. Almost looks like wood paneling, like his glasses. I was very intrigued by that. I looked at that for a couple minutes. I even showed it to my wife. Like, check out these
Nice,
glasses. These are out of control. It's a bold
nice.
statement right there. All right, so Back in Time. What are we gonna do next week, Jonathan?
All right. So for my category for next week, for you to choose from, I went with not quite the same. So these are all 3 documentaries are not quite the same as other documentaries we've done, but I think they're different enough that it'll still be interesting. So
Alrighty.
one is first we've got The Day the 60s Died, which covers the bloody incident at Kent State during the late 60s, which I thought was kind of a throwback to the Winter on Fire documentary that we covered.
Okay.
Next, I've got Kumar, which is about, let's see, it says this enlightened Indian guru built a large following in Arizona and changed people's lives. The only problem was he was a fake. So that's my like going clear. And
Gotcha.
yeah, and let's see. Then I've got Betty Page Reveals All. And this is a legendary pinup girl who's provoked passion, panic, and police raids and then disappeared. What really happened? We don't know, but it's like tabloid. So those are my not quite the same.
All worthy choices. I think let's try Kumar. Is that what it
You
is?
got it.
The Indian guru guy.
I'm glad you picked that because I don't know anything about it other than the little snippet that I just read that I copied off of Netflix. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the heck that thing's about. And I'm also curious, how do you start a cult? Maybe we'll find out.
Yeah, maybe next week we'll change our podcast to the cult. How did the Start Your Cult podcast?
Right.
For my recommendation this week, Jonathan, I have a podcast that is my favorite. Like when I heard the very concept of this podcast, I wanted to just smash our podcast and throw it away because this is the best concept for a podcast ever. And it's also like the stupidest idea for a podcast ever. But oh man, does it work. So the name of the podcast is The Worst Idea of All Time podcast. And it's these two guys in New Zealand. And the concept of the podcast is every episode, if you like movie reviews, this is a good podcast because every episode they review a movie. But every episode is the same movie. It's Grown Ups 2. They watch it every week and then discuss it. So it's like widely regarded as a completely terrible movie, and they committed to watching it 52 times. And so like the first few episodes, they're like trying to dissect it and stuff, but it quickly breaks down to them being like, "Oh my God, why are we doing reflecting on their mental state and like how it's affecting their lives that they're watching Grown Ups 2 so much." And it's pretty great. And they just recently finished watching it 52 times and went into their second season, which for the second season they're watching Sex and the City 2 every week for a year. So good times. I recommend checking it out big time.
So is it pretty funny then to actually listen to?
Oh yeah, it's super funny.
Okay.
And they've also just announced they're doing another podcast called Till Death Do Us Blart, which is every Thanksgiving Day for the rest of time. They have made a vow to for the rest of time, and if one of them dies or whatever, they're gonna try to replace them and carry this on forever. They're gonna, on every Thanksgiving, they're going to watch Paul Blart Mall Cop 2.
Okay.
and review that. So yeah, good times. All right, so that will do it for us this week. Thank you for listening to the Documentary Review Podcast. Email us feedback@documentaryreviewpodcast.com. This is PT. I will talk to you next time. Keep it real.
This is Jonathan. We'll see you next week. Hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about documentaries then.
Maybe. We'll see.